All right, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And I am extremely excited to introduce our next keynote presenter who is closing out today's live sessions for us at our second edition Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Virtual Summit. Wema Hoover is joining us, and Wema is the Senior Director and Global Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Google. So in this role, she is responsible for leading a global team across the enterprise to increase representation in hiring, progression, retention, and to drive a more inclusive and equitable culture through influencing, partnering, and driving sustainable impact in the engagement, development, and sense of belonging for all Googlers. So Wema leads all efforts focused on establishing and driving equitable people processes, the company's workforce diversity teams, serving as diversity business partners within each product area, and if that's not enough, she's also overseeing all ERGs and DEI councils for Google. So without further ado, Wema, I'm very happy to have you here, and I would love to have you take it away.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Should I share my slides now?
Yes, whenever you are comfortable, go ahead and share.
Okay, are you able to see my slides?
I'm able to see them. Is there a full screen option to make it larger, or?
Okay, let's see. It was full screen. Let's see. Give me a second. I'm going to just stop sharing so I can get it into a full screen. Okay. I've got it. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not just yet, no. Oh, wonderful. Full screen, and it looks great.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for the invite. I am delighted to be here with you today and share our diversity journey at Google and all the things that we're doing to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion to life and embed it into the fabric of how we operate every day. So just start by saying is that, our strategy at diversity and our strategy for at Google for diversity is to build for everyone. And I think that that is such a powerful statement because as you'll see in the presentation, we talk about that in so many different ways in so many different areas of our work, our hiring, our talent management, and even our products that we drive. And so I wanted to start by sharing a quote from our esteemed CEO. And I must say that Sundar has been a true champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And later on in the presentation, I'll share how he has really been a steward of this for the organization and has been one of the biggest supporters of our racial equity commitments that we launched last year in 2020. But if you think about the work that we do and Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, building a more helpful Google for everyone to increase the world's knowledge, success, health, and happiness. His words here around believing that whether we're building a company or leading a country or diverse backgrounds, voices, and experiences truly does drive better outcomes. And that's what we have at the heart of our diversity, equity, inclusion offerings. And so what do we mean by diversity, equity, inclusion, and why are we focusing on it? Well, we believe in order to have a holistic approach that everyone, all Googlers can thrive, that we have to have a very deliberate approach for focusing and understanding how we're driving each one of these areas in very deliberate ways. So diversity is really around our ability to attract, develop, and progress our underrepresented Googlers and all of our talent at the workforce to reach or exceed the talent pool and to really tap into the true value and potential that each Googler has. Our equity efforts really focuses on the fairness, and the fairness from a systemic way of how we're embedding it into our people processes to ensure that the distribution of resources, of opportunities, and of how we are assessing our talent happens equitably across all of our Googler talent pools. And then lastly is around inclusion, making sure that all of our Googlers feel engaged, feel involved, feel included, and have a true sense of belonging, that they feel that they can bring their authentic self to work and that they are working under conditions that allow them not only survive and succeed, but thrive. And we have 7 principles that we really align our work to make sure that we're doing this in a very thoughtful and purposeful way. And I'll go into each one of the principles, but I just want to do an overview because as we talk about the work, it's very important that we think about it and make sure that we're transparent. Not only transparent in terms of what we do internally, but taking our shareholders, taking our customers, taking our users, taking our Googlers along the way so that we can be able to build understandings and really drive our work more effectively. We absolutely use data to inform our decisions, and that is why a big area of my team, which is our equity programs team, really does the systemic work and uses the data to ensure that we're addressing the areas that we have the greatest opportunities. We approach diversity as a business challenge. And what do we mean by that? It means that we see this as critical to the advancement, the enhancement, and to the innovation of our work that we do. Everybody's ownership has to be at the center of this, and it starts with our leadership. And again, you'll hear more of that when I talk a little bit about our racial equity commitments. It's embedded in and is really central to the culture that we drive at Google. So when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, we talk about the workplace. We talk about the sense of belonging. We're talking about the need for us to mirror our customer base and mirror the communities that we operate in. We always think global and act local because we are located in many markets across the world. And it is so important for us not only to devise services and really interventions that help us within our countries, but that help us globally really unite again around our purpose and our vision, and particularly the equity efforts that we're driving. And recognizing it is a marathon, meaning that we are going to have times that we sprint and we have progress. There are going to be times that we have to stop, pause, reflect, understand we need to shift gears or change directions, but that's what we are committed to do and are driving. And the first I want to start with transparency. So every year since 2014, and forgive me, my screen is going up, we have our diversity annual report. And this report really shares our narrative and our story around what are the areas that we're focusing on and how we are doing. And we talk about all of the areas that we focus and we assess, from our pay equity to our representation to our products. And then we actually share what is their continuation of that work. And then how will we see that really evolving and developing as we progress our strategy and as we are integrated into our business. And so when we are doing that, we pull in the data so that we can understand where's our greatest opportunity from a representation, where is our greater opportunity from hiring, what is our greatest opportunity from an engagement. And then we really take the time to think about the very unique and deliberate areas that we want to make change, not only because we see that it is one of the focus areas that we hear, in the industry, but truly because we know that in order for us to bring those insights, to bring the contributions and the skills that we need to harness, we have to ensure that we have very diverse and integrated workforce. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the representation. And as you see, this is as of 2019. But one of the things that we had done in 2020, which I mentioned earlier, was really the release of our racial equity commitments. And this was something that our organization took very seriously. And as a result of all of the racial injustices that we've seen in 2020. And so what does that look like? We harnessed around 5 major commitments. And those commitments are seeking and committing to increasing the Black representation of our senior levels of the organization, and really looking at increasing the representations of our underrepresented group by 30% by 2025. We know that is ambitious, but that's why we have harnessed and collected very systemic approaches to ensuring that we do that and really shift our behaviors and the way that we drive our people processes. The second piece is really around making sure that we harness progression and retention efforts to drive the engagement, the connectivity, and also the retention of our underrepresented Googlers. So we know that there are unique experiences that our underrepresented colleagues face, that they come into our organizations as we understand how big and broad the scope of the businesses that we have at Google, but that we make a very, very deliberate approach to ensuring that we give them the support from how can they progress their careers, what are the things that they can do within their particular product area, and then also when we see that there have been trends or understand that maybe there is inability to have that development, we triage that, and we actually have an organization specifically focused on that. And that is one of the things I think we're really proud of, because those efforts span hiring, it spans promotion, it spans development, and also retention. The third thing that we have done, which I'm very proud to share, and that is launching this month, is around our sense of belonging. We are going to be launching our Google Sense of Belonging, Search for Belonging. And this is work that we have done with John Powell. And it is amazing because we really dive into what are the actual tenets of belonging, what prohibits it from happening, what are the areas that we can do internally to ensure that every Googler feels like they're not only invited to the party, but they're asked to dance. And making sure that in doing so, we give tools to our leaders, to our managers, so that they themselves can extend that belonging, that active inclusion, that engagement on a regular basis, and that our Googlers experience every day. And the fifth is specifically on supporting the mental and physical health and well-being of our Black plus communities. So we understood that last year, with all of the events and moments that we've had within the US, that really had a tremendous impact on our Black plus Googlers. We wanted to support them in a very, very meaningful way. And so through that, we looked at our health and benefits to really see what we can do to extend some of those benefits to ensure that we're addressing the health and their well-being and their psychological safety. And so one of the major things that we have done is with our EAP counselors. We partnered with them to ensure that we had a catalyst of Black counselors to support our colleagues during this time. And so I share those commitments as we talk about the data, because that is really how we drove to what those specific and key commitments were. And now, we are full throttle ahead, activating them across our organization. And the third is approaching diversity as a business challenge. And so when we think about this, it's really exciting to me, because Google is tremendously important in the tech world and has spanned so many places, from YouTube to search to our products and services. We harness the opportunity to really think about how are we using our diversity, equity, inclusion to ensure that's embedded and reflected in our work. And so I'm excited to show you a video of something that we just launched in January. It's going to be a surprise, but it's really around our search capacity and what we have done to service our community. But I'll explain a little bit about it without sharing it. But it's really around looking at clear goals, right? Ensuring that we have the objectives and key results and aspirational goals at the company level and really making them relevant to the country level. That we dedicate the resources. So in order for this to be done and for us to maintain our progress, we need to have the dedicated resources, teams, and experts within our diversity equity team across our product areas to ensure the pull-through is done and that is aligned with our people partners and with our business leaders. We have and set clear action plans, and those action plans have timelines, it has owners, and it actually has dedicated focus that is relevant per product area. And then we do a rigorous review. So we do make sure that as we are having every PA come up with their own action plan, that there are milestones and we look at what progress has been made and where we need to focus and shift gears to ensure that we are driving the momentum. And then lastly, we have KPIs that are tracked. And our Chief Diversity Officer, Melanie Parker, actually goes to our board of directors and reports on this on a quarterly basis. And so I wanted to also make sure that as we talk about the work that we do, accountability is really the center of this. And it's just not the leadership, although it starts with the leadership, but we also think about how do we make sure that everyone is invited in and have the opportunity to own this, to drive it, and to live it. And so what we have done is several things. One is ensuring that progress is accelerated and that we have Google-wide company goals. And now with our racial equity commitments, those are commitments that are across every PA. And so not only does all of our leaders, our CEO, Sundar has it, but all of our leaders have it. And that is something that is embedded into our leaders' accountability and their metrics, which they are held accountable for. Our frontline managers actually go through training, and we do so in a way to build not only the competence of their DEI capabilities, but also understanding how to navigate in these spaces that we're in that we've never been in before, with racial justice, with now greater need for accessibility and inclusion of people with disabilities. And we do these things on a very deliberate basis. And we have activation, not only here in the US, but across our markets. And the third thing is around ensuring that we bring everyone under our umbrella and that we progress and we really promote allyship. And allyship is a huge component, I'll talk about a little later, around our search for belonging, but ensuring that we actively give the tools, the opportunities, and the environment and space to actually have everyone have a voice to support. Even if they're not a part of a particular community, they can still promote, be an ally, and advocate and drive the work that will help us be able to have a healthy, inclusive, diverse, and equitable environment. And so the fourth is our product inclusion. We have really done a fantastic job of really tapping into our Googlers to help design, to help integrate, to help have the insights to ensure that inclusion and diversity is really built into our products. And some of the examples that we share here is through the YouTube, Android, to the Smart Box, and of course to Google Search, that we'll learn a little bit more at the end of my presentation. But we actively seek the insights and the feedback of our employee resource groups to ensure that we avoid stereotypes, to ensure that we are truly in making sure that the language, our intent, and the work that we do is not skewed, and including that, as you see on the slide, reference to hate speech or any other behaviors that are not in line with our values and that do not promote diversity, equity, inclusion. And then one of the other things that we do, we make sure that as we activate, that we do so in a much very deliberate manner. you will hear after this, I'm not able to share now, but we had a wonderful event today for women of color that was absolutely amazing. And this was so special to me. It's because it really addressed the unique environment experiences of a community. And we brought women of color together to not only go through this, but share the insights to learning and then pull these learnings and insights through moving forward, right? So we have not only the community of the event, but now these are dialogue, discussions, and engagement we have moving forward. And such like also we did with the Accessibility Week, which we making sure that we communicate what the value of accessibility is at Google and ensuring that our Googlers understand and participate in the project to ensure that we have it in our products, but also speak to what we can do as Googlers to drive accessibility, inclusion on a regular basis. And then we also have the I Am Remarkable program, which specifically is focused on women and underrepresented groups. And this is really all about providing the toolkit to advocate for ourselves in very deliberate and intentional ways. More often than not, we see that women and people from underrepresented groups tend to have more propensity to be modest and not speak up about their accomplishments, about their career aspirations, or about what they need to be able to progress. And what we wanted to do was actually give the tools, give the environment, and actually give practice to how they can do that in a very focused way. And so this is the advocacy of them, their career development, of their needs, of what they are aspiring to be. And so we wanted to do that to making sure that there was no shame. And then we understood the environment and what is socially, maybe cultural norms, but making sure we gave the tools to break that. And we've had, obviously, you see here, 120,000 participants, over 7,000 workshops in over 120 countries. So extremely proud and happy to see that. And one of the other things we do is embed diversity as a part of our culture. And so we have an annual survey that's called Google Guides that we give every year. And we have a diversity, equity, inclusion index that all managers that meet the threshold actually get sentiment of how they are measuring and are driving diversity, equity, and inclusion in their teams. And that is very important because that is insights that we take and that we actually bring into our annual and our focus area for our Google-wide DEI work. And we also look at how we are participating and measuring in campaigns like the Human Rights Campaign, the Disability Equality Index, and other external index. So we make sure that we take part in these surveys so that they can inform our work and educate us on how we can do and what we can do better. And our values are so critical to this. And our values are very simple, but very powerful. Respect the user, respect the opportunity, and respect each other. And we think that this is truly the basis of our diversity, equity, inclusion efforts and what we aspire to, what we expect, and what we deliver in all the work that we do. And we have a wonderful community of inclusion that spans across 16 employee resource groups, multi-level diversity, equity, inclusion councils within our PAs, and tremendous amount of engagement around our leadership councils that are aligned to each of our ERGs. And so as you see here, this is just a collection of them, but they do run the gambit, and they're not only US based, which I'm very proud. They really speak to the other communities that we want to give a voice to. We want to give a platform to hear their feedback, hear their experiences, and we want to engage them in our work that we're driving diversity, equity, inclusion across our organization. And the last thing we have, not last thing, but our principle is really around having a global strategy, but making sure that it is locally relevant and respects local differences. Understanding that when we talk about the different spectrums from race to disability to gender to being non-binary, we understand that it actually means and actually shows up very differently across our different markets. And we actually have a strong presence and have DEI leaders in Europe and in Asia and in South America. And so we work collectively together to make sure we serve all of our Googlers and that we keep our efforts focused on our global strategy, but we also make sure that we engage local leadership. We have the very relevant and thoughtful integration of cultural practices so that we can drive progress. And we also make sure that as we are working across our regions and our markets, that our partnership reflects that our partnerships not only speak to what we're doing in the US, but create bridges so that we can help foster greater understanding, foster greater connectivity, and really the representation of all the work we do across our markets. And looking just beyond our talent pool that we have in our organization today or that we are hiring, but what is that pipeline of talent that is coming from college, coming from middle school, and just really sparking that interest in STEM fields so that we can build our pathways for everyone to tech way beyond, way before they come out of college. And so we have very many different engagements that we do that, and really excited about how not only that has grown, but that we have pulled that into our markets and very locally run efforts. And then again, I leave here, it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint, it is a marathon. And we say it's a marathon because, again, we know that this is going to be the efforts that we do that we build, that it's foundational, that we build our skill, that we build our muscle, and that we push on, and that we lead and we learn along the way, that we ensure that our leaders are accountable and understand, but that also our employees and our Googlers feel the engagement and feel the opportunity to help share their experiences if we need to shift gears, change, and or take a different approaches. And I think that the way that we've approached our work has allowed us to do that effectively. And so I'll leave a quote from our Chief Diversity Officer, Melanie Parker, which I'm sure many of you know. Our job is not done until every Googler feels like they belong. And that is at the heart of all of the work that we do. And so lastly, I want to just leave with, I don't know if I'm going to be able to share this because my sound wasn't sure, but I'm going to launch it. Is my sound working?
I think I just heard it, Wema.
Oh, you did? Okay. I'm going to leave you with a new product that we just launched. It's called the Search for Black Owned. That is now a part of Google Search. And I encourage everyone to, after this, go on your Google search and practice this and enjoy. So I'm going to start over if you can hear it.
Can you make it full screen, Wema?
Yes, I can.
The four-way is a destination place. Right here between these walls is a lot of history.
We tried to operate a decent, respectable place that anybody wouldn't feel bad to walk in.
It was for everybody. You never know who you're gonna meet.
We got lawyers, doctors, educators.
Martin Luther King, B.B. King, Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. You're sitting in a place where giants ate.
The four-way as a restaurant and the Cleese family meant so much to this neighborhood.
To have a place where you have dignity and belong, that's the legacy of the four-way.
Loving people, sharing and caring and loving people. That's a great way to think.
So I'll pause here and turn it back over to you, Shirley.
Thank you, Wema. I'm trying to unmute. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we're very excited that we kind of got a exclusive sneak peek since it was just released. And I think that's really important for everyone to see that and see that the opportunities there. So we have quite a few questions that have been coming in throughout your presentation. And I would love to have the opportunity to read those to you quickly for the audience that we have today. I have one here. That says, hi, Wema, thank you for this presentation. You mentioned that CDO collects KPIs and reports them to your board. A question that asked at my company is how to capture D&I KPIs in a meaningful manner. Do you have any advice for this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. What we have done is really around how we are driving through our interventions and looking at the outcomes. So we look at our performance ratings and the distribution across demographics. We look at our hiring as well as our promotions. So we take a very deliberate approach, not only looking at the representation, but we're looking at how are our efforts truly affecting the pull through, the engagement and the development of all of our Googlers.
Thank you, thank you. Next question is, of everyone's so sweet. They're all saying, hi, Wema. I was impressed. I was impressed to read that the Google report and also see that you did make it public. What is your view or insights on the effectiveness of internal networks?
Yeah, I think it's important, right? We make it public because we want to be transparent that this is a journey, that we don't come with all the answers or do not come to say that we have solved, the Holy Grail. What we want to do is really show that this is a process that we're taking, but we have taken a deliberate engagement. We have senior leadership in our CEO who has stood behind this, and that our journey is taking us on specific actions that we want to see grow, develop, and change the way that we operate. And that is what we will continue to do. And so as we drive this, we want to make sure that we are able to have that communication and engagement with our users, with our communities, to help show that transparency of our efforts as we go along the way, and also the wins that we get as we are seeing progress against our efforts.
Thank you. I have another one here from Cindy asking, is Google using lean thinking methodologies to support your diversity initiatives? If so, could you give a few examples? I would love to build lean thinking mindset into our approach.
That's a great question. So we have multi-pronged efforts that goes into our development, our leadership, and our catalog. So it's not just one thinking, but obviously lean thinking is a great tool to use. But specifically, we have an integrated approach. And so we have that in one program, but we use several others as well. So I don't want to say that it is exclusive, but I do encourage to making sure that as in your organization, you make sure that you use the right efforts and mechanisms that'll reflect your ambition and also really be embedded into your learning and development. So that is our goal right now, to make sure all of our efforts is really a part of our curriculum and really stands outside of our efforts that we do in DEI, that it's reinforced within our learning and development curriculum.
Perfect, thank you. I'm scanning quick, Wema, to see if we have any more questions that are coming in. We might be caught up for now, but I kind of have a question that just popped into my head, if I could throw that out there while we wait to see if there's more. And the goal that you mentioned earlier in your presentation about that 30% goal that you had mentioned does seem pretty aggressive. What is your advice for the attendees in the audience, for their organizations, for what does a starting point look like for them? What should a goal or a percentage look like for them? Obviously Google, we all look up to you. So what would be your advice for the other organizations?
Yeah, my advice is really to first do the diligence. Understand where are your pain points. Do that analysis and recognize not only what are your pain points, but is the organization committed to changing? So if you identify where those areas are, then making sure that you elevate it, you get leadership visibility, and you get leadership accountability to change. Because without that, it will just be a goal, right? But our goal has really transitioned into organization committing resources, committing experts to really driving impact across those specific areas.
I mean, you mentioned leadership accountability. I was just taking a few notes, and that's definitely something that has been very apparent in several of the keynotes and sessions today. Another kind of starting point question is, where should the DE&I leaders here today, how do they start that conversation of sparking that change and encouraging leadership accountability?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it has to do with making sure, as you talk about culture, as you talk about your people or talent strategy, that as DEI professionals, you ensure that you bring the diversity, equity, inclusion lens to that. Because truly, you cannot have those efforts without understanding how to maximize the potential of all of your talent pools. And so with that as the basis of activating an inclusive culture, of making sure you leverage the full potential of your talent pool, of ensuring you have the engagement of all your employees. Diversity, equity, inclusion could be your a very, very, very strong centrality to all of those things. And that's how I encourage them to elevate that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I mean, very, very helpful. I'm sure the audience is representing all different parts of that journey. And there are some that are already there, and there are some that are looking at how we get there. So I think that your presentation today really showcased all of those wonderful efforts and showed people what is possible if we could really decide on what is our commitment to change and what is our starting point. I believe I'm caught up on the questions from the audience, but oh, yes, I am. I'm just double checking. Are there any last thoughts, Wema, that you would like to share with the group today?
The only thing I would say is stay encouraged. You know, this is not easy work. And sometimes we're at the heart of how the organization is supposed to push through, problems. I think that when I say stay encouraged, meaning that ensuring that you give yourself the time, the space, and the engagement to not drive to activity, but really being thoughtful about what's going to have the greatest impact and what you can rally your organization around. Because that is what's going to drive success and progress.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not many, but just few. Not 1,000 flowers blooming, but focus, clarity.
Thank you so much, Wema. This has been wonderful. And I thank you again for spending time with us today. And I'm sure the audience is very grateful as well. I'd like to say thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Wish you well. And then I'll get back to our closing remarks. But again, can't say thank you enough.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Wema.